Morning everyone, welcome to Falkirk Council Scrutiny Committee, Tuesday 12th of November. First of all, I'd like to welcome our new councillor Claire Aiken to our place. I'm glad to see you in the Scrutiny Committee, Claire. Claire's the councillor for the Falkirk South Ward. I'd also like to welcome back to Scrutiny Councillor Robertson. It's good to see him here again, and I'm glad he's keeping a wee bit better, and just glad to see you here, John.
Thank you very much, Provost.
Agenda item 1, apologies.
Thank you, Provost. Sorry, Provost, Councillor Balfour sends in his apologies this morning.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Provost. So yes, we have apologies from Deputy Provost Balfour, Councillor Aitchison, Councillor Anslow and Councillor Binney.
Yes, thank you.
Apologies, John.
Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Members should declare any financial and non-financial interest they may have in any item of business at this meeting, identifying the relevant agenda item and the nature of the interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Colley.
Thank you. I have one which is in relation to the items related to NHS Forth Valley, and to note that I am a board member of NHS Forth Valley as the council's representative, and to take advice. I think that's in general around transparency. But on item 5, as chair of Falkirk Health and Social Care Partnership, I would certainly declare an interest, and think it's probably not appropriate that I'm involved in the discussions around this.
Thanks very much, Councillor Colley. Councillor Flynn.
Yep, thank you, convener. With regard to agenda item 7, I'm a member of the IGB board and also the vice chair of the IGB audit committee, and I feel it would be appropriate if I recuse myself from this item with your permission. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Aiken.
It's a statement of transparency. It's just to make you aware that I have a close family member who's had involvement with Bernardo's, CAMS and Aberlour services.
Thank you. Would you, Mr. Miller, would you like to summarise where we are with the declarations of interest?
Thank you, Provost. Yes, so starting first with the declaration of interest, Councillor Colley and Councillor Flynn have indicated that they will recuse themselves from item 7 due to their role within the Integration Joint Board. Councillor Colley has also made a transparency statement in relation to the NHS matters relating to item 5, and Councillor Aiken has done the same, made a transparency statement in relation to matters on item 5. Both Councillor Colley and Councillor Aiken can take part in item 5. These were just transparency statements. Thank you.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, minute of the meeting of the Scrutiny Committee held on 8th October, pages 3 to 9 on your agenda papers. Can we agree the minute?
Agreed.
Thank you. Any matters arising from the minute? Agenda item 4, roll and action log, pages 10 to 11 on your agenda papers. Any questions on the roll and action log? No. Agenda item 5, first main item of business, following the public bound services to children and young people, 2023-24 annual reporting statements, pages 12 to 59 on your agenda papers. And the first one is Aberlour Childcare Trust Early Years Outreach Service. And we'll go to Laura to speak to the report or give a brief overview.
Good morning, Provost and elected members. It's lovely to see you this morning. My name is Laura Lowry and I'm a locality manager in Children's Services, and I've prepared a number of the reports that have been presented to you this morning. I'm also here to present the report for the Looked After Psychology Service, which was written by Gail McIntyre. In general, these services all support Children's Social Work Service in delivering early intervention support to children and families in the local area. Family support services aim to support parents to increase their confidence and resilience. And in each report, I have tried to outline the kind of uniqueness of the service offer and how that contributes towards our overall strategic aims. In terms of the Aberlour service, you will probably have seen within the reports today that this previous financial year, which has been reported upon, had 2 services from Aberlour, which was the early years outreach service and the family centre support. What we have done within the past financial year is to really reflect on the kind of model of service delivery and some of the challenges that were being faced by the service in delivering the service in line with how we had anticipated that would be delivered. So there have been several changes which have been made. Some of the detail is outlined within the report, but I'm happy to take any particular questions that you might have around those changes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I'll just open up for questions. Councillor Robertson.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions, Laura, if you can answer them, please, for me. The report notes that due to lack of capacity to meet targets in 2024-2025, the service will be combining with Aberlour Family Centre to provide support to families. Ahead of this next reporting period, how will the organisation set targets for the performance, and can the next report provide targets for success alongside actual performance? A subsequent question, if you can answer, is how will Falkirk Council funding change to reflect the combined organisation?
Thank you for those questions, Councillor Robertson. So yes, I can answer both of those queries. In terms of the targets that have been set within this new financial year, which we haven't reported on yet, we have revised the targets and the outcomes that we will be measuring the Aberlour Family Support Service within. So that information is all now included in a new service level agreement, which we have worked closely with Aberlour to create, and we all feel confident that that is progressing well to date. Part of the kind of reporting feedback is focusing on the outcomes and experiences of families, so reporting back on the strengths that they achieve or they're supported within through the support, and how that then impacts on them and their family and helps them to move on from the support of the service is a particular feature that we are focusing in on just now. And in terms of the funding, so we have combined those 2 Aberlour services. We looked at a new model of delivery and what would be a proportionate cost for that service delivery. So in this current financial year, our newly agreed budget for Aberlour family support in total is £160,000. So that's a reduction of £110,000 overall, which we feel is a proportionate budget to deliver the support that's required to families in the local area.
Thank you, Laura.
Any other questions, Councillor Robertson?
The only one is for the outreach service. I wonder if Laura can answer this one to me. Aberlour early years, can we reach to that one just now?
Yep.
Aberlour early years outreach service and Home Start Falkirk both provide essential early year support to families in Falkirk. Aberlour early years outreach service reached £159,060 in funding from Falkirk Council in the year 2023-2024 and supported 66 families. Home Start Falkirk received £20,014 in Falkirk and funding from Falkirk Council in the year 2023-2024 and supported 72 families. Can the Monitoring Office explain the difference in the value for money?
Yes, thank you for that question. The model of delivery within Home Start is unique in comparison to our other family support services in that they deliver a high proportion of their support through volunteers that they recruit and train into their service, but they deliver that support at no cost, which means that the overall cost of the service provision for Home Start is quite low in comparison to our other family support services. Home Start have also reviewed their service delivery, their approach over the past 6 to 9 months, and identified opportunities to increase their group support for parents across different areas in Falkirk. And they found that that has been a really successful model of delivery for families who at times can experience social isolation. So by bringing families who have shared experiences together, that type of support can be really productive for a number of families, and results in a kind of a lesser number of staff to facilitate those groups. So that's probably the key difference in terms of service delivery. Other family support services, including the Aberlour Early Years Outreach Service, do deliver group support, but tend to, or have tended to, primarily offer direct one-to-one support, which can be really helpful, but it means that there's more limited capacity to, or a more limited capacity of families who can be supported at the same time.
Is that you, Councillor Robertson? I think you're on mute.
Sorry, Laura. Thank you very much. Thank you, Provost.
Thanks, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Forrest.
Thank you, Convener. The report notes that the service supports families across central Falkirk and across other areas of the local authority where capacity allows. For this reporting period, were families outside central Falkirk supported?
Yes, thank you for your question. There are families across Falkirk are supported, and when we evaluated the family support provision across Falkirk, what we wanted to ensure was that we had a presence across each locality, so East, West and Central Falkirk. So Aberlour would be the service who are based in the Central Falkirk area, but all services have the capacity to consider the needs in terms of referrals coming in and where they feel that they can support families. And one of the things that we have established in May this year in Falkirk is a one source of referral now for family support. So our commission services that are reporting back on today and Falkirk Council's Family Support Service all now receive referrals into the one panel and consider those referrals collectively. So what that means is that we've got an increased confidence that no family will be waiting for a lengthy period of time and support, and we consider the needs that are presented to the panel and who's best placed to support families. So if that is a family who live in Denny, but we feel that Aberlour are the best service to support, we'll look at how that could be possible. So we consider the needs across the whole area.
Thank you. That sounds really good. You're actually expanding the service to a degree, so that sounds really good. There is one other question, if that's okay. The report notes that the service held accessible free reserves of 1.3 million. Are the reserves held by the organisation nationally? What proportion of this would Falkirk Council have, or Falkirk have access to? And is there scope to invest the money to ensure longevity for the organisation should the Council's funding reduce?
Thank you for that question. I believe that those reserves are reported on a national basis, so I'm unsure what proportion of that would be available for Falkirk services, but that's information that I can go away and find out and come back to you on. In terms of your second question, sorry, can I just clarify, you were asking about the funding that would be available if Falkirk Council's funding reduced, was that right?
Yes, that's right. I mean, what percentage, roughly? And again, you can come back to us on that one as well if you don't have the figures to hand.
Yeah, I'll do that if that's okay, because I don't have that information to hand.
Thank you for that, Laura. Thank you. Thanks,
Okay.
convener.
Thanks, Councillor Forrest. Councillor Colley.
Yeah, thanks for the information so far, Laura. I just wanted to have one question around the planned approach to moving families on for the service once they've reached the positive destinations, and I suppose maybe to say a little bit about that, and also have any families had to return to the service after the support's ended?
Thank you for those questions. We have been working with services to clarify the approach that they use with families, and each family support service has reviewed and improved their reporting mechanisms so that the work that they do is understood and done alongside families who are supported by services. So examples include the use of visual tools such as the Outcome Star in some services, including within Aberlour now. And that is a tool where staff will sit with families and identify within 5 areas where they feel their strengths lie and where they are experiencing the most challenge. And they will identify from that what their priority of the support will be. And they will then review that after a period of time to measure progress against the work that's taken place. And those visual tools have really helped families to see their own success and to kind of identify what they would require from continued support. So it's created a real structure around that work, and has helped for conversations to be taking place at the right time now, where services are identifying there's potentially a limited role for them moving forward, or families are saying themselves that they feel confident and resilient to move on. And then there's consideration about what universal services would be available to families, or if there's a need to signpost them on to any other service to support them in their journey moving forward. In terms of re-referrals into family support, that's not something that we've seen very frequently. I think what we are confident now is that we're confident in communicating back to referrers at the point of closure, and also to having conversations with families about who they think they will need, and making links, supporting families to make links with the relevant people before they leave the service, so families feel confident to move on, knowing who's around them to provide support. So re-referrals into family support are not something that we are seeing a high number of at the moment.
Thank you, Laura.
Thanks, Councillor Colley. I have one question, Laura. The monitoring report submitted in 22-23 showed that the service was commissioned to support 108 families, but only supported 68 families. For this reporting period, they again fell short in meeting the target, supporting 66 families. Can you explain the reasons why the organisation has not met its targets for the second consecutive year? Is this a contributing factor to the organisation's decision to combine with the Aberlour Family Centre?
Thank you for your question. Yes, I can give you that information. In terms of the previous financial year, the main reason why the service had been unable to meet the targets as expected was in relation to staff and absence issues that they had that were fairly significant. In this financial year, though, there was some staff absence, but the real issue that we identified was that the delivery of the registered care service, the Play Together, Learn Together service, was taking up a significant proportion of the funding provided and staff time required to run that service. And also there was issues in terms of the length of time that families were being supported for. So quite a significant number of families were being supported for over 6 months, and we would see that as being longer than expected within a family support service. So when we looked at options for moving things forward, we kind of thought about the Play Together, Learn Together service and identified that that wasn't a priority in terms of our future commissioning needs, and looked at the provision of support from both the Family Centre and the Early Years Outreach service, and identified that there was an opportunity, because those were closely aligned services, to pull them together into one service and focus on a new model of family support delivery. So yes, that was a factor in merging the two services and looking at a new model and approach from Aberlour and Falkirk.
Okay, thanks very much, Laura. We'll now move on to the next report, Aberlour Childcare Trust Family Centre Langleys, and I'll ask the first question. The report notes that the service's inability to meet its targets was due to a significant proportion of funding being used to deliver the Play Together, Learn Together registered childcare service, leaving insufficient resources to provide its other functions. How successful was the Play Together, Learn Together service during the reporting period? Was it worth the resources required? And I'll just add this bit. The service received the same amount of funding during the previous reporting period 22-23, where it fell short in meeting its targets. The reason given for this was due to staffing issues. In this reporting period, the service again fell short in meeting its targets, in this case due to Play Together, Learn Together service depleting resources. Can you explain how the service will manage its resources going forward to ensure targets are met? You probably covered a wee bit of that already.
Thank you for that question. Hopefully my explanation of the work that we have done collaboratively with Aberlour will answer some of those queries in terms of the future model of delivery and how resources will be focused on the areas of need that we have jointly identified. In terms of the success of the Play Together, Learn Together resource, I don't have information to report back on that, because it's not a service that we have explicitly commissioned recently. I believe it's a service that was established a number of years ago and felt to be successful within the local area. However, it's not been part of the funding stream that we have been monitoring. So I don't have information in terms of outcomes for that service. I can find that information out and come back to you with that information.
That would be good if you could do that.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you. I'm now going to Councillor Colley.
Thank you very much, Provost. I just want to ask about the reports noting that there's 30 families that were supported in 23-24, and half were families who were continuing to receive support from the previous financial year. And I suppose the question is about what the service has in terms of a process for moving families on from the service and ensuring that they provide support to a wider range of families. And I guess that similar to the previous question about encouraging families to progress on to positive destinations.
Thank you for that question. I would reiterate the information that we talked about in terms of the early years outreach service for Aberlour, in terms of the model of assessment that is now in place by the organisation, and how they use those tools collaboratively with family to evidence progress, discuss and clarify ongoing levels of need, and who can help to provide that if that requires to be the service Aberlour, or if there are the named person, for example, could provide sufficient support within universal services, or if the family feel that they are now more confident and able to manage their kind of challenges in a different way. So probably similar to what I've already said, in terms of the methods that are now in place to support families to move on at the right time.
Okay, thank you. We'll now move on to Bernardo's Children's Services, if you would like to give a short overview of that report. Laura?
Yes, thank you. So Bernardo's is commissioned by Children's Services to provide three very different services. We have family group decision making, which is an approach where families are brought together and supported by Bernardo's to come together, consider a presenting issue or need, and think collectively about, as a family, how they can support each other to manage what they're going through together. We have Lifelong Links, which is a service for looked after children to help young people re-establish relationships that they might have lost through their care journey. And we also have Access, which supports young people who misuse alcohol or substances. And the focus of the service is to meet with young people, understand underlying reasons for their substance misuse, and then work with the young person and their family to address those needs to help reduce substance misuse and the harm that then can come from those services. So they are three very unique services that are provided in Falkirk. They are not types of support that are provided by any other commission service or within the council. So you'll see the recommendation within my report is that it's very important that we continue to provide this type of support in the local area. In terms of family group decision making, we did identify an opportunity with Bernardo's to review the provision of that service because the service had identified that there was continued inability to meet the targets that had been established previously. And when we reviewed that, we identified an opportunity to deliver the service in a different way, so within shorter timescales for priority areas of need, and that we also looked at what the kind of need of service would be and proportionate funding for that service. So we did a lot of work in this previous financial year, which has been reported on, and in this new financial year we have a new model of delivery in place for family group decision making at a reduced budget as well. So I'm happy to take any questions that you might have about Bernardo's.
Okay, thanks, Laura. We'll go for the first question. We'll go to Councillor Robertson.
Thank you, Convener. Laura, I'm just looking at the report, and in this reporting period, Falkirk Council has provided reduced funding of 450,000 to Bernardo's. That's 50,000 down for the previous financial year. So because of the 50,000, can I ask why there's a reduction and what is the impact regarding that?
Thank you for that question. My understanding is that there had been an increase in funding in a previous reporting period, and part of that had been to trial a cash first approach where families were, Bernardo's had the ability to give families financial support where they were referred for family group decision making to avoid referral to another part of the council. And my understanding is that that additional funding for that part of the service was stopped in the last reporting period. However, it hasn't impacted negatively on families because they were able to still access wider financial support from the Bernardo's service as a whole. And also there are now a number of services within Falkirk, including within Falkirk Council, who provide income maximisation support and have very close links with Bernardo's service. So families were not left in a worse off position through that decision making.
Thank you, Laura. That's good to know.
Thanks very much, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Kelly. Councillor Kelly.
Morning, Laura. The report shows a majority of young people who use the service are males. between the age of 13 and 16. Can you provide the committee with details of the challenges that these young people or young males in Falkirk are facing? What do you think needs to be done outside of the organisation to improve the well-being of young males, please?
Thank you for that question. There are a high number of referrals for males in that age range, and what the Access Service feedback is that it tends to be young people who get into a pattern of associating with peers within the local community and feel drawn into misusing substances through those peer relationships. So one of the things that Access has done in this reporting period is revisiting their links with community-based police officers within schools and with schools, and identifying at an early point any opportunities where it might be recognised that there's a group of young people who are starting to encourage each other to get involved in substance misuse, and that can lead to wider issues within the community. So Access will go in and offer a kind of an information sharing about using substances, kind of trying to highlight the harmful impact that that can have not only on the young person's health, but on their wider opportunities in terms of it could lead them into conflict with the law. It could damage the relationships that they have with other peers or with their family. So they try and share information to divert young people away from that type of behaviour in a group where they notice that that's becoming an issue. In terms of the wider improvements, Access sit on our early and effective intervention panel. So that's a group of professionals from multi-agency services who will meet to review any young people who've been referred where there are concerns around their low-level offending behaviour. And Access are a partner on that group who can collaborate with other partners to address the kind of wider needs of young people. So we look at a multi-agency approach for young people to say, while this might be the reason that a young person's been referred, are there other things going on for them that are contributing to this that we can provide a kind of network of support around? So we do have good multi-agency links in Falkirk and try to look at the whole family approach where we can.
Thanks, Laura, for that one. In a similar line, the report shows the number of young people supported by the organisation reduces past the age of 18, past the age of 16. Why is this? And are the young people that are being supported over 16, are they new referrals, or are they people receiving continuous support from the younger age?
Thank you for that question. Access will provide ongoing support for young people who go into young adulthood. That's one of the strengths that they recognise, is that sometimes young people, if they need to move to an adult focused service, they can disengage, and they're really focused on maintaining relationships with young people. So while I don't have the data around the number of those young people who continue to be supported, I can tell you from monitoring meetings that Access do maintain the relationship with young people beyond the age of 16 and 18. So I would suggest that those young people are probably not newly referred to Access and continue to receive support from them, but I can go away and get that information for you.
Be obliged. That'd be fantastic. Thanks a lot, Laura.
Thanks very much, Councillor Kelly. Any other questions? Councillor Forrest.
Thanks. Thank you for your explanations there, Laura. I really sort of put some meat on the bones, and we can actually, I think we feel it more human than reading the report, so thank you for that. Moving on to the family group decision making. The report shows that the organisation did not meet the set targets for the families supported during 23-24, supporting 56 out of the target number of 75. Can you explain that?
Yes, thank you for that question.
Thank you.
When we looked at the provision of family group decision making both in Falkirk and also nationally, what is recognised is that there is roughly a 45% of families who are referred to the service who ultimately go on to engage in what is described as the family group meeting, which is the kind of point where the family eventually come together. So what we recognised within the Falkirk context is that the targets that had been set in terms of 175 families, was quite high and didn't reflect that kind of experience where there's a lower than half percentage of families who go on to engage in the process. There were over 75 families referred, but we understood that it would be unlikely for 75 families or for every family to then engage with the service provided. So we jointly agreed that the overall target needed to be readjusted to take into consideration the nature of the work that's done and the kind of national research and evidence behind the approach and how we needed to adapt the approach in Falkirk. We also then looked at where there was opportunity to streamline the process. So the family group decision-making process is a very well-established one, and usually the process takes about 12 weeks from the point of referral to a family meeting. However, we identified opportunity to shorten that process for families who were at more immediate need and risk of potentially breakdown if the service wasn't provided quickly. So in doing that, we were able to identify a new model of delivery that is now in place in this reporting period, where for some areas of need, referrals are responded to within a 4-week period. And what that means is that the service has the ability to engage with families very quickly, achieve positive outcomes, and then have the capacity to work with other families in similar situations more quickly than they did before. So that's the kind of summary of how we've achieved change in Falkirk.
Thank you for that, Laura. So the target will actually be reduced
Yes.
in future years, but also so will the time that it takes for them to have a meeting. So thank you for that. Thanks. Thank you, Convener.
Any other questions? Yeah, I'll ask a question on lifelong links. Are there any other services which provide this type of support? What would be the impact on the service users if this support ceased?
Thank you for that question. Lifelong Links is unique in terms of the depth of support that is provided. So workers will go back and look through records that are held on kind of national databases. They will look at in-depth kind of family trees and relationships that young people have, and look at wider connections beyond the immediate birth family for children as well. And that is a very time-consuming process that is not a service that Falkirk Council's social work service would have the capacity to replicate. So that's part of the reason why the overall targets for that part of the service are low, because it's recognised that that piece of work will take quite a long period of time. So the number of children who can be supported through that is very few, but it is very impactful for those young people who experience the support. So my recommendation would be that we sustain that commission service through Bernardo's, because it's not a service that is currently provided by any other Commission Service or Falkirk Council, and not something that we currently have the capacity to provide.
Okay, thank you. Go to Councillor Colley.
Yes, thanks. On the same project, and I noted in the report that there were young people who were referred to the service who didn't go on to establish contact with family members, and obviously this is, you know, the aim of the really important project. But how are the organisation managing that, and what happens to those young people? How are they supported in that? I guess that inability to make or sustain contact with family.
Thank you for that question. That is a key part of what Bernardo's will offer support around, is for a young person to better understand their family tree, who the people have been in their life and who the people will be in their life moving forward. And they provide a high level of emotional support to young people around that process, and will very much provide support at a pace that's right for the individual child or young person. So sometimes children might choose to pause the work that's being done and consider the information that they've been provided, and then decide what they want to do with that, if they want to then try and re-establish contact, or if that's not possible, supporting the young person to understand why that's not possible right now and consider what's important to them moving forward with that information. Bernardo's also works closely with the allocated social worker for the young person to keep them informed of this process, so that would form part of their overall plan of support, so that the young person is given appropriate emotional support from those who are important in their life, to help them manage the information if contact with family members isn't going to be possible as they had hoped.
Okay, thanks very much. We'll now move on to Home Start Falkirk. If you could just give a brief overview again, Laura.
Thank you. So Home Start Falkirk is a family support service which supports families with children aged 5 and under. They provide holistic family support, so they will consider the needs of the parent, recognising that the parent-child relationship is really important in the early years, and provide support to try and help parents have the confidence and the resilience to look after their young children and achieve a positive start in life for their children. You will see within the report that Home Start have also, within this reporting period, extended the support that they provide through increasing their links and relationships with wider teams within the council, including the Education, Training and Employment Unit. And a number of families who had been supported through the Family Support Service moved on to engage in the Early Introduction to Employment course, which focused on helping families to consider what their next steps will be once their children start nursery and school. And what has been really lovely is that the parents who have engaged in that project have gone on to achieve wider outcomes in terms of their own employment, or deciding that they want to become volunteers themselves for Home Start to go on and support families who have been through similar experiences to themselves in the future. So the model of delivery is individual support to families, group support to families, and also through befriending support. And you will see that the report indicates that the outcomes from the service are very good, and we would recommend that the services continue to be funded at the current level to support families in the same way moving forward.
Okay, thanks very much, Laura. Open it up for questions. Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Convener. Good morning. Laura, you said, and I think it's very positive, that some of those who are helped by Home Start actually go on to become volunteers. And obviously you rely heavily on volunteer personnel to carry out the functions of Home Start. What's volunteer recruitment and retention like? And what impact does that have on the service if it goes up or down? Obviously.
Thank you for that question. Through our monitoring discussions, Homestart have reported that they have been able to establish long-term relationships with their volunteers. So they don't tend to have a lot of recruitment need to replace volunteers because they stay with the service for some time. However, when they identify, such as within this reporting period, that there are an increased number of referrals to the service, they anticipate that they would like to increase their volunteer support. So they have recruited within this reporting period. I don't have the data to hand, but I can go and find that out if that would be helpful, just to quantify what that's looked like in this reporting period.
Yes, I thank you, Laura. I think it is particularly encouraging that those that volunteer clearly enjoy and see it rewarding if they decide to carry on as volunteers, and you're not having a sort of churn of people coming in and in feeling that it's not the right thing, or perhaps they're not being supported themselves in their volunteering role. So that's very encouraging. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Patrick. Councillor Forrest.
Thank you, Convener. The service provides a wide range of support for families. Should funding from the council reduce, how would the organisation restructure itself to continue providing services to families, but avoid duplicating the services of any other organisation?
Thank you for that question. We haven't had a discussion about how the service would restructure if there was a reduction in funding, because through our monitoring conversations, we have had a confidence that the current funding stream is proportionate, and we would be recommending that that continues. However, in recognising the wider financial constraints on the council at the moment, we would then enter into a conversation, if that was the case, that we needed to look at reduced funding with the service and look at the model of delivery. The benefit for Homestart, as we've discussed, is that they do have a volunteer model. So that would be something that we would look to explore and consider any opportunities to maximise that. In terms of avoiding duplication, we have worked really hard collectively with all of the commissioned family support services and Falkirk Council's family support service to understand and make sure that we have a shared understanding of what each service delivers, and where services have strengths in their delivery, where services are being delivered well, and where there's perhaps identified need and opportunities for services to work together to develop something to meet the local need. So what's been really helpful in that approach is that it has avoided duplication, because there's a better understanding now through our panel process of services that are already involved with families or who are located within an area of Falkirk and best able to respond to meet need in that area. So if we had to have a discussion about reduced funding, we would certainly be able to have a collective discussion with all services around what the priority of need is and how each service contributes to meeting those needs without duplicating the service provision.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thank you, Convener.
Thanks, Councillor Forrest. And just a final question on this Homestart Falkirk from me. The report details helpful information in relation to the outcomes of service users, including parent feedback and a timeline of parent scores upon their referral to the service, and how these have changed throughout their time with the service. Can other services provide this type of information going forward?
Thank you for that question. Yes, that is something that we have been working hard to try and establish a more shared or consistent reporting format for all services. It is still a bit of a challenge because services employ different models of assessment and measurement of outcomes. So you will see within the reports that how that is reported back can be different, but certainly we want in the next financial year to try and coordinate the outcome reporting. So we will continue to work on that.
Okay, thanks very much, Laura. We'll now move on to NHS Forth Valley CAMS. If you could just give a brief overview.
Thank you. This report for our looked after psychology service has been prepared by my colleague Gail McIntyre, who isn't available today, so I'm presenting on her behalf. The looked after psychology service is a service that we have in Falkirk Council to provide assessment and support for our looked after young people. So young people who would be looked after away from home or at home, and at times placed with their family members or in foster or residential care. In this reporting period, you will note that there was a vacancy. So we had 2 part-time members of staff employed to provide this service. We did attempt to recruit to the vacancy on several occasions, and unfortunately we were not successful in those attempts. So a decision was made to continue with 1 part-time member of staff and look at how we adapt the model of delivery within that reduced capacity. So we have worked closely with this member of staff to look at how support was delivered, and what has been identified is that the consultation approach with the named professional and the group of professionals around the child is really successful, because often children don't need direct intervention from our looked after psychologist, but those who work with the child and have good relationships with them already are best placed to provide the support that they require to help them achieve good outcomes. So we have maximised the delivery of consultation, and also continue to have the capacity for assessment that we require from this particular member of staff, who is skilled and experienced in a way that we are not within the council to do those assessments. So for example, a cognitive assessment. So those have been the main kind of changes, I guess, within this reporting period. You'll see that the recommendation is that this continues to be a really key strength of our service, and we would recommend that we continue to fund it at the reduced cost.
Yeah, thanks very much, Laura. I'll just open it up for questions, Councillor Kelly.
Hi again, Laura. Why can't we get another part-time psychologist? Is there a reason for this? Is it financial, or just people don't want to work with the council?
Thank you for that question. I don't have the full information about why it has been a challenge, but I can certainly go away and find that information out and come back to you.
I'd certainly be obliged for that one. We all realise that Scotland's going through a mental health crisis, drugs, alcohol addiction, and so on. A lot of this has its roots in childhood trauma. Deciding to cut the psychologist doesn't seem to be a good thing for the council. And could I ask, how long would a child or a family wait for an appointment for CAMS?
Thank you for that question. We recognise the mental health issues that are being experienced within our local community, and absolutely would agree that supporting young people at the earliest opportunity is the most effective route. So we absolutely still have a focus on support for young people around their emotional well-being. I appreciate, though, the concern that you're raising around the reduction in this type of support in context of that. And one of the things that our looked after psychologist has done within this past year is really identify opportunities for her ongoing relationship within CAMS to direct young people to the wider CAMS service if she feels that her support could be given by CAMHS instead. So that's a way that she tries to maximise her time for young people, is recognising that she can't see everybody who might benefit from support, but she has colleagues locally who can. In terms of timescales, I know that health colleagues were recently sharing that there has been a real improvement in timescales for CAMHS and minimal waiting times, and that the NHS targets are now being met for waiting lists in Falkirk. I can't tell you what that looks like in terms of the length of time, but I can go away and find that out and come back with that information.
Again, Laura, I'd be obliged if you could. Thanks very much for that.
Thanks very much. I'll bring in John Reid.
Thank you, Provost. And it's just to supplement the response that Laura gave there regarding psychologists, and just to reassure members that all schools, all secondary schools, have a very well developed and established school counselling service. And that's also provided to primary 6 and 7 pupils. So that, if you like, alongside the work that's undertaken by teachers and by pupils' support staff in schools, is a service that staff and young people are able to really access quickly and easily, and therefore preventing further escalation or referrals onto CAMHS as well. So I just think that's an important point to make about the totality of the work that's going on across the service.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thanks, John. Are these the people that are doing it in schools? Is it trained psychologists, or is it teachers, or what that's providing this service?
No, they're trained counsellors that are all approved against a framework. So there'll be a variety of different people depending on what their career history has been, but we don't employ them as psychologists. We employ them as counsellors, and as long as they have the appropriate accreditations and they've passed our due diligence, then contracts are awarded.
Thanks, John.
Thanks very much. Any other questions on CAMHS? No. Okay, we'll now move on to One Parent Families Scotland, Falkirk. If you'd just like to give a short overview again, Laura.
Thank you, Provost. The One Parent Families Scotland is a family support service based in Maddiston, which has been established for a number of years in Falkirk, and provides support to lone parent families. The service has worked really closely with the families who are supported in the past financial year to review the impact of their support and hear from families what they feel they benefit from most. And through that feedback, they have increased the group support that they offer to families. That's both opportunities for children and families to come together and engage in a supportive activity together, and also throughout the school holidays to increase the support that is provided to families when they feel like they have a more limited support network around, and sometimes are feeling increased stress in their role as a lone parent and looking after children through the holidays. So they have increased their school holiday provision for families, and that includes outings, but also a lot of activities based at the family centre that are accessible for local families. They continue to provide one-to-one support to families and have a similar approach in terms of working really closely with families to identify their strengths and where they feel they need support, and helping them to achieve good outcomes and move on from the service at the time that's right for them. A unique aspect of One Parent Families is that they also provide a counselling service through the use of providing counselling student placements. And this means that families who access the family support service can access that one-to-one counselling support in their local area, which is a real strength of the service and something that they have looked to increase over this reporting period as well, due to that positive impact. So you will read within the report that the summary of the service delivery has been very positive. The service has exceeded their targets and grown in terms of delivery in the past reporting year. And our recommendation would be that we continue to fund the family support service through One Parent Families Scotland at the continued funding level. Happy to take any questions you have.
Thanks, Laura. Just Councillor Forrest.
Hi, me again, Laura. Thanks. Thanks for that report. It's in the report, it notes that the involvement with families is limited to 6 months. Why is this? What about families who require a bit more support for a longer period? What happens then?
Thank you for that question. That perhaps hasn't come across quite as it was intended to within the report, because there is no time limitation on the support that's provided. However, the experience of the service and what is reported back in our monitoring meetings is that most families tend to be supported for a 6-month period, and then are ready to move on after that point. There are families who are supported for longer than that when it's required. And the service will use the tools that they have to work alongside families to identify how they support the family to achieve what they want to achieve, and then help them to identify when they're ready to move on, so that families do move on from the service at the right time.
Okay, thanks for that. A wee bit of misunderstanding on my behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. I've got a question. The report notes that the service received £25,358 in pupil equity funding for the reporting period. What would be the impact if this funding happened to be removed?
Thank you for that question. My understanding is that that funding is used to support one of their family support workers to be based in a local primary school. And the benefit of that is that the worker is able to develop a relationship and knowledge of the local families and respond quickly to any identified need through education colleagues. If that support, if the funding is no longer available with that, we would be working closely with the service to evaluate how we can try and retain close links with that local school to ensure a similar delivery of support in the area.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? I think at this point we'll just take a short 10-minute comfort break. Thank you. Okay, welcome back everyone. We'll now move to Quarriers Children's Rights Service, Falkirk Children's Rights Service, and we'll just go to Laura for a brief overview again.
Thank you, Provost. Quarriers are a children's rights service who provide children's rights support and advocacy to all young people in Falkirk and care experienced young people up to the age of 26. They have two sort of defined aspects to their service delivery. One is around direct support to young people, and they are the only commissioned service in Falkirk who will accept referrals for any child in the Falkirk area. Our other commissioned service who cares focuses primarily on referrals for looked after young people. So Quarriers provides direct support to young people to help assist them with an issue that they feel they are facing in their life and supporting their rights to be upheld. Quarriers also helps to support Falkirk Council in its wider strategic needs in developing service improvement. And one of the key pieces of work that Quarriers has been involved in within this reporting period is the delivery of the Rights Respecting School Awards, which have now been implemented across all schools in Falkirk. And what we have discussed within monitoring meetings is we are seeing the positive impact of that work now, where more young people appear to be aware of their rights and are more proactively now reaching out to Quarriers through their known relationship with their work that they've done in school to seek advice and assistance at an early point. So referrals have increased to the service, which has exceeded performance in terms of the previous reporting period within this last reporting period, but has managed capacity very carefully and continued to be able to respond to all referrals that have been received into the service. So our recommendation is that we would suggest this service should continue to be funded to ensure this continued children's rights support in the local area for all young people. So I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
Okay, any questions? No, I'll just ask one. The report notes that you don't need to answer this if I get any horrendous question you feel you don't want to answer it, you don't need to answer it. The report notes that the service has seen a general increase in requests for children to be supported with concerns around their education. These requests focused on young people subject to reduced timetables who wish to increase their time in school, and children with additional support needs requesting increased support to achieve in education. The Council is set to discuss proposed changes to the school week in December. Can you provide information on how this decision may impact on the service? Have young people expressed concerns around this? Now, if you feel it's like an unfair question, you don't really need to answer it, given it's coming up to the Council in December, but I thought you should at least put it out there and see what you think. Councillor Flynn, did you want to come in?
Yes, Convener, if I may. It's just a straightforward question, Laura. It's page 45. It refers to Quarriers' reserves of 7.5 million. My question really is, it sounds an amazing amount of money, because that's the kind of reserves that a small council, local council might have. I just wondered if you're able to find out what proportion these reserves represent against their annual turnover, and have the reserves gone up over the last few years? That's my question. Thank you.
Sorry, Laura, I thought Councillor Flynn was asking the question about the question.
Oh, no, sorry. I beg your pardon.
Okay, so if you want to take my question first, then go to Councillor Flynn.
Yeah, thank you very much, Provost. That is absolutely fine. And in terms of your query around the proposals around the school week, it's not something that has been raised as any point of concern from Quarrier Service. And to clarify, Quarriers will receive concerns from children about a range of subjects, including their family, their plans, and there has been an increase in terms of requests for education support, but the The role of couriers is to come in and help the child understand what's available, who's around that can provide support, and work collectively with the team around the child to achieve a good outcome in that area. So while concerns have been increasing, I suppose, or referrals have been increasing in that area, sometimes the work that couriers does is to help the child understand their current situation, who else is around them, and how everyone can work together to collectively get to a point that the young person would like to be at. I see John has his hand up. I'm not sure if you maybe want to come in here, John.
John?
Yeah, thank you, Provost. Thank you, Laura. Just to add a couple of things to what Laura said there, but particularly in relation to the Learning Week, which, as you've referenced, is coming back to Council in December. The latest information we have from the census that was just taken in September would indicate that there are 38% of young people with an identified additional support need, if my memory serves me correctly. Now, that is increasing, and I've referenced that before in committee situations, that there is an increasing number of young people and an increasing broader range of needs than ever before. And that would fit in with national patterns, but that's the current situation in Falkirk. One of the main thrusts of the Learning Week proposals is to make sure that we are able to protect the support we offer to our young people. And that will be support across a broad spectrum, but including those young people with additional support needs. So that's one of the main drivers of the Learning Week. You're aware of that, and we will return to that in December committee, but I just wanted to make that point at this time.
Thanks very much, John. Any other questions on couriers? No. So we'll now move on to Who Cares Advocacy Service. My apologies. Councillor Flynn's question needs answered.
Yep. Do you want me to go over the question again, Provost?
If you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem at all, actually. It was just really on page 45, it refers to couriers having reserves of 7.5 million. I just wondered, it seems a very high figure, what ratio that was to their annual turnover, and have these reserves increased over the last few years? I suspect, Laura, you would have to go away and get that information, but it'd be useful to know.
Thank you for that question. Yes, I will need to go and find that information out. I can confirm that will be the reserves of the company, as it is a nationwide company, so that will be across the UK.
Oh, I thought it was just, sorry, my maybe misinterpretation. It says it's a large Scottish charity. So is it not purely Scotland then? Yep.
Sorry, you're correct. You're correct. That's my mistake. It is across Scotland.
Thanks, Laura, and thank you, Provost.
Okay, thank you. So we'll now move on to the Who Cares Advocacy Service, Laura.
Thank you, Provost. The Who Cares Advocacy Service is a small local support provision around children's rights and advocacy for children who are looked after in the Falkirk area. They work closely alongside Falkirk Council and colleagues in couriers to ensure that there is no duplication of support and that they work collaboratively and offer the most opportunities they can to look after young people in Falkirk. So they deliver individual support to young people to assist them with their kind of area of need and support. They also, as part of a Scottish organisation, regularly offer opportunities on a wider basis for our local young people to get involved in. So national events that they have, such as the national kind of walk that they just did for in support of care experience young people through in Glasgow. They also hold events on Christmas Day, and that's open to all young people supported by the service, and a number of other events over different holiday periods to promote inclusion for young people. And they have established relationships in Falkirk. The members of staff, one of them has been working in this area for a number of years, and they are a very responsive service. They will work closely with social work colleagues when concerns are raised around care planning. And you'll see within the report that one of the positive aspects that they have reported back on in this reporting period is a decrease in dissatisfaction with social work services being raised by young people. That was in response to changes within social work staff in the previous reporting period that young people felt was impacting negatively on their care plan and progression. But that is an area that we are now seeing improvement within, and it's being reflected back through the feedback from Who Cares Advocacy Service as well, which is really positive. So
Okay.
Sorry, Provost.
Sorry, on you go. I thought you
No,
were finished.
I'm just going to conclude that our recommendation is that this is a valuable support that's provided by the service, and we would recommend that it continues to be commissioned at the same level of funding.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question. How does the service measure success? Can the service provide more information on its success measures for the next reporting period? For example, service user feedback and outcomes.
Thank you for that question, Provost. Yes, that is something that we can look to reflect more clearly in the next report, in the next reporting period. Service user outcomes and satisfaction tends to be represented in terms of statements from young people who have been supported by the service, not only coming back to the service as feedback, but coming back to wider professionals such as social work and education colleagues and parents and carers of those young people. So through our monitoring meetings, we do get regular feedback about young people's experience of the service, but it is not measured in the same way as some of the family support services that we discussed earlier on. So we will look to represent that information differently in the next reporting period.
Okay, thanks very much. Any other questions on the Who Cares Advocacy Service? No, I think that's your last report, Laura. So well done navigating through the report and very succinctly answering the questions, and look forward to receiving the information that members have asked for. So well done. But did I see Councillor Robertson?
Yeah, as there's still maybe an issue, I would like to ask a question in the Forth Valley Speech and Language Therapy.
We're just going there next, Councillor Robertson.
Oh, that's fine. Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you, Convener.
So thanks very much, Laura. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your time.
And you. So the next one is NHS Forth Valley Speech and Language Therapy, and we'll go over to Kerry Kerry Dinnan to give a just short overview.
Good morning, Provost.
Morning.
Thank you. So, morning. I'll provide a brief overview of our NHS Speech and Language Therapy Service. So we've got a service level agreement for speech and language services with NHS Forth Valley. We jointly fund those therapists to work directly in our schools with our staff, our children, our young people and our families. This ensures that we meet our statutory obligations to address language and communication barriers, to ensure improved attainment, well-being and destinations for children and young people as they journey through school to adulthood. It supports the closing of the spoken language gap, which is created by additional support needs and poverty, both of which are increasing in our society. Each speech and language therapist links to a cluster of education establishment. They work in collaboration with the head teacher and the school community to agree the delivery of strategies and interventions, training and support to the school community. Support is tailored to the needs of each setting. Parents can also refer directly for speech and language one-to-one support for their young person, and that's available through one-to-one clinics for that more targeted bespoke support. Waiting times have reduced and are currently the best in Scotland. The service delivery was transformed to this new approach a few years ago, just before and during COVID. So that means that our model has bucked the trend seen in other councils as a result of the impact of COVID, with other services are struggling to cope with the demand for speech and language support. The more earlier appropriate interventions and support that we can provide directly through our schools, the less the need for those one-to-one interventions, which are more costly. We don't fund or pay for any buildings or any clinics. We fund entirely therapists, so that's staff on the ground. Any increase in annual costs is entirely due to staff pay awards alone. This year, due to those reduced caseloads, our model has enabled additional further therapist time to be available for targeted support to some of our settings. We've set up an operational group to track settings and target certain establishments with an intensive programme to improve their embedding of the total communication environment. And our vision is that every setting is skilled in providing that total communication environment for our young people. So this is about 5 settings this session. It's part of our ambition to embed education staff as therapy partners, which makes a really efficient use of the service. We use our data to intelligently target our speech and language resources in the most efficient way. We follow a continual quality improvement model. And again, we would recommend that the funding was to continue at the same level as currently, because we are starting to see the impact of that model.
Okay, thanks very much.
Questions?
Thanks very much, Kerry. Councillor Robertson, did you have your hand up?
Yes, Convener, thank you. Thank you very much. Kerry, good morning. Kerry, the report shows that the organisation's caseload is at an all-time low, yet the council funding for the service is higher than in previous years. Is this proportionate? And I'm wondering if you could maybe provide more information on this for me.
Yeah, this is really important because our caseloads were quite high. So the more time that our therapists have to spend on individual casework, the less time they've got to then support that wider framework in schools. So that compromises our staff chain, and that compromises our earlier intervention and preventative approach. So they made a targeted effort to reduce those caseload and to ensure that we could provide therapists directly to our schools, that our schools can contact therapists for advice immediately so that they could improve interventions in the school setting, so that we wouldn't need caseloads and these kind of more intensive support for young people. So it was a really big shift to tackle those high caseloads and provide better support to schools and direct support to families to reduce that need for that intensive caseload. So we would hope to see the reduction. So not only have we got that reduction in caseload that allows more support for that early intervention and prevention, but we are actually bucking the trend where other services are having to cope with the big demands of higher caseload, like other local authorities, and therefore struggling to have that early intervention and prevention approach. So it is a successful story that we would like to see the reduced caseloads. That's part of the transformation model.
Absolutely fantastic, Kerry. Thank you for that answer.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on speech and language therapy? No. That's the last report on this, the following public found services to children and young people 23-24 annual report and statements. But I'll just go, the report's in John Reid's name, so I'll just go back to John to see if he's got anything to add at all.
No, I would just add that I mean, I think that what you've heard today has exemplified a broad range of really intensive support amongst challenging financial circumstances that are delivering for our families and our young people, and it complements the work that's going on across all of our settings in schools and within children and families social work. So I would just like to commend the officers for all of their hard work and everybody who's delivering on the ground for our young people, because it is making a real significant impact.
Thanks very much, John. That's quite clear from the reports. An awful lot of good work being done for our families and for young people and children. And long may that continue. So we'll now move to agenda item 6, which is Standards and Quality Report 23-24. And it's pages 60 to 83 on your agenda papers. And is it yourself, John, that's speaking to that?
No, it's not. I'm joined by 2 colleagues this morning. Jill Pringle is here, who's Head of Education for Secondary and Performance, who was involved in writing the report, with Scott Lavery, who is our Quality Improvement Manager. So I'll hand over to Jill first of all.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Provost. I'm just going to give a brief introduction just of the purpose of the paper, and then pass over to Scott if there's questions around the content contained within. So the Service Standards and Quality Report highlights the high level improvement of central officers. This report is also a mechanism to report on some of the successes and work of establishments. The report details outcomes arising from work undertaken towards the Service Improvement Plan and reports under national measures as indicated in the National Improvement Framework. The report fulfils legislative requirements as stated in Education Scotland Act 2016. The Standards in Scotland Schools, etc. Act 2000 Part 1 refers to the duties conferred on local authorities, including the planning and reporting requirements, which are aimed at supporting transparency and accountability around the efforts of education authorities in improving educational outcomes. The preparation and publication each year of the Standards and Quality Report forms part of these reporting requirements. The Standards and Quality Report for 23-24 is the 8th report in Falkirk prepared under the National Improvement Framework. It provides an evaluation summary of progress and improvements during the academic session of 2023-24. The report is intended to be a high-level update culminating from input from a range of central officers. Councillors are advised to note this report, providing a summary of achievements, and that further detail around attainment will be presented in March when the data becomes public.
Okay,
so that's just a brief. Sorry.
Thanks very much, Jill. I've got a couple of questions. The
Okay.
report notes that the positive school leaver destination percentage has increased from 94.2 to 95.4. Additionally, Falkirk Council's progression to higher education average was 85.5 compared to 81 nationally. This is excellent. Is there a plan to maintain, improve further next year? Already very high standards, so is there...
I can come in and answer that one for you, Provost. Remember that what we're looking at is a little lag in the data. So that data you're looking at in terms of what's reported there is for 22-23, but it's published slightly later. So we've obviously just undertaken our school leaver destination return in October for 23-24. That data is not yet public. It will be published, I think, around February time, if my memory serves me correctly. So that latest data is not contained in that Standards and Quality Report that you are looking at. But what I can tell you is that there would be a further improvement, and once all the checks have been done, we anticipate that there would be a further improvement on that position, which is really good news for Falkirk and Falkirk's young people. And the other point that you're raising there is our measures for being part of the LEAPS programme. And the LEAPS programme is the Lothian Equal Access programme, and that works with young people in a variety of different circumstances to try and get them to progress into higher education, some of whom receive contextualised offers to get them into courses. So slightly lower offers to get into the courses than what other young people may experience. And we're developing our partnership and continue to develop our partnership and increase the number of young people that are involved in the LEAPS activity that takes place across all our secondaries, and also within the transition courses, which are detailed there as well. And again, we've got early indications that the success with that programme is continuing, and we've got higher numbers of young people involved with the programme in our schools.
Yes, thank you. My next question is pages 77 to 81. We have some graphs. I just wonder if you explain what the tables on these pages indicate. I couldn't quite follow them myself. It's sort of green and yellow. Still work to do, good progress, etc. I wonder if these could be explained a wee bit more.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I'm just looking to see. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. The tables refer to the priorities that were in the service improvement plan and following self-evaluation and the evidence gathering. the actions that have been taken and with the priorities that were identified and just what's being carried forward to next year's improvement plan, and you know what we haven't been able to make progress on. So everything relates to the service improvement plan.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Colley.
Yes, thank you, Provost. John, I've got a question in regard to the improvements that have been observed in the literacy attainment gap between disadvantaged students and their peers. I suppose maybe providing a little bit more detail on this and what's gotten better and how, and does this compare to national targets? How does it compare? Are we doing better or worse than Scotland, or is the rest of Scotland, or are we broadly comparable or better?
Okay, thank you. I may defer to Jill and Scott to answer that question because they know the intricacies of that data.
Scott, would you mind doing an update on the literacy part of it, and I'll pull up the data in the meantime, if that's okay?
Yep, thanks, Jill. Thanks for that question. Yeah, in terms of closing the gap, we've had, in terms of our funding through SAFE, the Scottish getting this right, Strategic Equity Fund, we have a real focus on literacy over the last year and a half, where we've got a couple of staff who are in the service that are working predominantly with our schools within the highest levels of deprivation to look at pedagogy with staff and focus on attainment, and that's had a really positive impact on improving outcomes, particularly for those learners, and has had an impact on our overall data. And we have got plans to roll that out in terms of looking at numeracy next over the next year, and really having that close eye on the gap that we have in Falkirk, and really identifying the schools and looking at moderation and ensuring that teachers' professional judgment is as robust and strong as it can be.
Are you happy with that, Fiona?
I'll maybe just add to that, Provost, if that's okay, while Jill calls up the data. What I would say is that the service and officers have very detailed data in terms of all of the measures within the BGE and within the senior phase. So primary, S1 to S3 and S4 to S6. Now, when the CFE levels or Achievement of Curriculum for Excellence levels are reported, unhelpfully, sometimes it can be reported as primary 1, primary 4 and primary 7, and they're all lumped together. But our officers obviously have the separate data for primary 1 on its own, primary 4 on its own, and so on, across all of the measures for all of the schools. Now, that data is available for parents and members of the public to view. It's the school information dashboard, which is accessed via the Education Scotland website, and any member of the public or parent can go onto that, and you can see how their school is performing against their comparator school. That data is for 22-23, and that's why we will be providing a further report to Scrutiny regarding the 23-24 data when it is officially published. We're just not allowed to use that at the moment. And I wonder if Jill has got any further comments to make around the data.
Yeah, I can give a quick update on the literacy attainment gap, as John's spoken about. In terms of for reporting purposes, it's primary 147 combined for literacy, and the attainment gap for literacy for Falkirk Council has reduced since 21-22. In 21-22 it was 27.15 percentage points, and in 22-23 it was 17.79 percentage points. And although this is not public data for 23-24, it has further reduced by nearly 1 percentage point again since 22-23. So in terms of a trend, we have a good trend of closing the attainment gap for literacy moving forward. There isn't national data published for that for 23-24 yet, so I'm not able to talk about a national comparison, but certainly in terms of our improvements internally within Falkirk Council, that gap is closing for literacy.
That's great and really good to hear, and I look forward to the update report when the wider information is publicly available. Thank you.
John?
Yeah, and just to pick up on one final point regarding this question, and Scott mentioned there the use of strategic equity funding, and also this morning we've heard about some of the support that's provided to young people and their families via pupil equity funding. And just to flag up to members that obviously we don't have any confirmation that that funding is going to exist beyond March 2026, and that is a really important point for everyone to be aware of. I'm sure I've answered a question on that before, but it is vital for the service and support we're providing across the service in areas like literacy, numeracy, well-being, but also in the wider children and families aspect as well.
Okay, thanks very much. We'll now go to Councillor Forrest.
Thank you, convener. I've got a couple of questions. The first one is regarding the fact that report, and I take it this is for 22-23, is that 88% of schools in Falkirk Council have achieved either a bronze, silver or gold rights respecting school award, compared to the national target of 78%. This is really excellent. Smashed it with 10%. Is there a local target? Are there plans to increase this further?
Thank you. My understanding is that 95% of the schools have signed up for the award, and obviously they're going through the process of benchmarking and accreditation, so we would expect that number to increase.
Great. Thank you. Next question. The report states that pupils feel more included and respected, fostering a sense of belonging and agency that supports their personal and social development. Can you provide a wee bit more detail on this? How's this measured?
I'll ask Scott to come into that question. Thank you.
I think you're on mute, Scott.
Just realised that's still on mute. Sorry about that. Thanks for the question. Yeah, I suppose a lot of the measures that we'd be looking at would be through feedback from schools, through conversations with staff, conversations with young people, children and young people themselves, and looking at, if there's been an intervention in a school around this, looking at the kind of the start, what are we seeing in terms of the, how the young people are feeling at that point, and then that post any intervention, how are the young people now feeling, and using that evidence to then look at, well, what is it that's led to that? And often it is an intervention, or as John's alluded to, work that's been going on through pupil equity funding that's really been focusing on well-being. So measures are often, it's that focus on kind of rather than being hard evidence, it's what learners are telling us.
Thank you very much for all of that.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Forrest. Councillor Patrick.
Yes, thank you, convener. Really, just perhaps enlighten us about the sort of inspections, because some schools, this is referring to page 67, some schools are given a full inspection and some a short inspection. Can you just maybe give some background to that, please?
Yes, absolutely, I can do. We have absolutely no control over that. It's part of HMI's national targets, and that they have targets to inspect a particular number of schools, as well as all the other inspection activity that they're involved in. And that is, they develop those models as a way of managing to meet those targets. So we don't find out a year in advance or anything. We find out a couple of weeks before the school is due to be inspected, and at that point we will find out if it's a short inspection or if it's a full model. What I would say, though, is that our central teams operate on the basis that it's going to be a full model. So if it is just a short model, a short inspection, we will have lots of data and information to support the other quality indicators. And if there's anything that's needing to be actioned as a result of our internal activity, then that's the support that we provide to schools. I would also add that actually you might think schools like a short inspection model. The rhetoric is they actually prefer a full inspection model because they're preparing for it anyway. And obviously, leadership of change and is an important one that drives all the other quality indicators that are inspected, but often is not commented on if it's a short inspection model.
Thank you. Another question. This is about the ELCs. They're all showing very good performance. I mean, everybody says everybody is very good across all the quality indicators, but of course Langley's has got 3 excellent indicators as well, which is particularly encouraging. Can we learn lessons from this across the other schools that perhaps that they'll be able to emulate that? And nice to see even more excellent figures there.
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. We, what happens in advance of inspection is that schools and centres, early learning centres, will submit their own evaluation, or they've done their own self-evaluation in terms of where they think they are at, and then the care inspectorate or HMI inspectors will come in to basically corroborate that or find out if there's any differences. So we're delighted with the Langley's excellence. We were anticipating some more excellence in some of our early learning centres. We were very sure because there's a very good network across the heads of centre. There's lots of professional learning and sharing of practice that goes on in the sector, and we felt that we we were anticipating some more excellence in our early learning centres, and it didn't happen. The evaluations came out as very good. Importantly, when we ask the inspectors, well, what is it then? If we're not excellent, what is it that we need to do to get to excellent? It's a very difficult question for them to answer. And sometimes it is, well, we just, we need to see that embedded for a bit longer. There really isn't anything major or specific that's lacking that's preventing us from getting an excellent. So we're going to keep working at that and working with the teams of inspectors that come in to try and secure some more excellent evaluations.
Thank you, John. Perhaps in a sense, it's never right to be at the top level. You're better always to be aiming for the top level to keep standards high. So maybe in fact, that just keeps everyone on their toes and everyone's.
It's a very positive picture across all of the inspections, though, which is good for us to see.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's the main point. It's all very good or excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Any other questions? No. Well, thanks to John, Jill and Scott for coming along and speaking to the report and answering the questions. Very positive, high performance, and long may it continue. So we'll now move on to agenda item 7, Falkirk Health and Social Care Partnership, pages 84 to 262 in your report. And is it yourself, Gail, that's speaking to it? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Provost. I'll just give a brief introduction and then I've got colleagues with me to answer any questions. So I've got Marie Kears, who's Chief Finance Officer, Martin Tom, who's Head of Integration, Caroline Doherty, who's Interim Head of Integration, and Tom Cowan, who's Interim Head of Primary Care. So they'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. So the purpose of the report is to cover progress since our last update to the Scrutiny Committee in November 2023. And it presents a number of documents. It includes the annual assurance statements provided to the Integration Joint Board from the Audit Committee, the Clinical and Care Governance Committee and the Joint Staff Forum. It includes an internal audit annual assurance report for 2023 to 24, the IJB unaudited annual accounts, noting they're going through our governance at the moment, the annual performance report, performance monitoring report and local government benchmarking framework, information on external inspections, and an update on progress with our MAT standards as part of the Alcohol and Drugs Partnership. So just as a reminder of the background, so the Integration Joint Board is responsible for overseeing the planning, management and delivery of all relevant functions within the scope of health and social care integration, and this includes the delegation of functions and services by both Falkirk Council and NHS Forth Valley. The IJB controls an annual budget of approximately £306 million and decides how resources are used to achieve the objectives of the Falkirk Strategic Plan. So the board's got in place a number of mechanisms and arrangements to monitor and scrutinise performance. This includes the Audit Committee and the Clinical and Care Governance Committee, both of which have specific remits and responsibilities. It receives annual assurance statements, and these are attached as appendices. It receives an annual performance report, which is published every year, as is a statutory requirement, and it receives standing reports to each IJB meeting, including the Chief Officer report, finance and performance monitoring reports. So I'm just going to pull out a few highlights throughout the report. So the Internal Audit Annual Assurance Report 23-24 concluded that reliance could be placed on the IJB's governance arrangements and systems for internal control for 23-24. The unaudited annual accounts show an in-year deficit of 7.568 million. This is comprised of planned use of reserves, release of reserves to fund in-year spend and covering year-end overspends. The final reserves balance reported was 21.261 million. These annual accounts will be presented to the Audit Committee meeting on the 15th of November, and thereafter will be available to view on the Health and Social Care Partnership website. So the budget and forecast position for 24-25, in March 24, the Council approved a payment of 93.9 million to the IJB, of which 92.4 was from the General Fund and 1.2 million from the Housing Revenue account, and 0.3 million was capital monies which were ring-fenced. The IJB set its business case in March 2024, which included savings measures of 12.2 million. At the end of Q1, our financial forecast reported to the September IJB was projecting an overspend of 5.982 million on integrated budgets and 7.405 million in relation to set-aside budgets. So we also have a medium-term financial plan, and the budget strategy paper presented to the September IJB set out an indicative medium-term financial gap for 25-26 through to 27-28 of 18.9 million, with 11.6 million related to the next financial year, and work is underway to fill that gap. The report also includes the Falkirk Annual Performance Report, and this was presented in June, and outlines some of the ways the partnership is working towards delivering the strategic plan and the 9 national health and wellbeing outcomes. A number of service developments are highlighted, including the relaunching of our short break service of people with learning difficulties at Thornton Gardens, new career pathways that have been created within social work by introducing new roles and mentoring opportunities, the launch of Care Opinion, which is an online feedback platform which allows people to feedback good and less good experiences of services, and also notes that Falkirk received praise as the best place in Scotland to grow old as a result of the Good Care Inspectorate ratings for all of our care homes, including our providers across Falkirk. The IJB Performance Monitoring Report is a standing item, and there's further information in the report that I won't go into. We've had a number of external inspection reports over the last year. These include Summerford House, Thornton Gardens, Grahamson House, Woodlands Resource Centre, housing support services across the 3 localities, the Mobile Emergency Care Service, Housing with Care service, and the HMP Stirling Prison. So generally, the ratings for our external inspections are very good. We did receive an adequate in Grahamston House, but following a re-inspection that was upgraded to good. So we do have very good performance that is illustrated through our external inspections. The report also includes information around progress with medication-assisted treatment, MAT standards, as part of our alcohol and drug partnership. And there's a table showing to what extent the standards have been implemented as assessed through a RAG status table. So I'm happy to take any questions myself, and colleagues will do our best to respond. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Gail. We'll now go to Councillor Robertson.
Good afternoon, Gail. Thank you very much for that. Gail, I've got a couple of questions. The first question is, the report states that, and I quote, "To lead us through any period of change, we need bold, effective leadership." What does this look like, and what plans does the Falkirk HSCP have to prepare for the challenges ahead, and what barriers do you think will be faced?
Okay, thank you, Councillor Robertson. I think that's a really good question. So we are seeing significant challenges at the moment. So the demand for health and social care services is increasing significantly. Colleagues will be aware of challenges around people being able to access acute hospital in a timely manner when they need that. There have been some waiting lists for services in our communities as well. In addition to that, the financial situation, as set out in the report, is extremely challenging. So in addition to that, there are workforce challenges as well. So being able to sustainably deliver essential health and social care to people in our communities that need it within the constraints of our financial envelope and our available workforce is and will continue to be a challenge moving forward. So strong leadership is required to guide us through that. There is no doubt there will be difficult decisions required by the IJB moving forward. Certainly in the context of our financial position in the year 25-26, there will be significant challenging decisions that are required to be made in order to support us to come back within our available financial envelope. Moving forward, the intention is to work collaboratively across our wider system, using a participation and engagement approach to develop and design a future operating model that will see what is deliverable in a sustainable manner in the medium to longer term. It's unlikely that everybody will agree with that, and that's the situation we have. It's very challenging financially to deliver everything that we would like to deliver, and we need to prioritise and ensure that we're able to support people as far as possible to live independently as home as most people want to for as long as possible. But it is a significant challenge, and the leadership team within the partnership are very much aware of that challenge and signed up to doing our very best to deliver on that challenge.
Thank you, Gail. Gail, I've got another question, if you can answer this one, please. Just regarding the accounts. The annual audited accounts provide details around the HSCP's progress with action plans to address the risks. It's noted that there has been some slippage in estimate timescales and some actions have not been taken forward. Why is this? Can the Chief Officer provide an update on the progress of these actions?
Yeah, I'll maybe invite Marie, our Chief Finance Officer, to come in first, and then I'm happy to add any further comments if that's okay, Marie.
Okay, over to Marie.
Sure. Thanks, Councillor Robertson. Yeah, within the accounts document, there were some areas which hadn't been taken forward over the last year. Now, it's just to let you know, we've recently had the updated external audit report as well, which was found, and that's going to the audit committee later this week. So it's just to let you know that the update on that is that it's been found to be satisfactory. There were no significant findings, and they've found good progress over the last year as well. So that's just a bit of an update on that, which wasn't available at the time of the report. Around internal audit actions, both the Chief Officer and I have recognised since coming into post that there are a number of actions outstanding, and we've worked with internal audit and external audit to work on updated target dates for those actions, and we are committed to moving them forward as quickly as possible over the coming year.
Thank you, Marie. It's good to know there's progress going forward. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, thanks, Councillor Robertson. Councillor Forrest.
Thanks. The report shows that the majority of operational risks are high, with 2 risks progressing from high in 2023 to very high in 2024. Can the officer explain this? Can you tell me why there's not been an improvement in that?
I wondered if Marie maybe wants to come in on that one as well.
Yeah, so again, thanks, Councillor Forrest, for your question around that. So One of the ones that has moved from high to very high is the financial sustainability strategic risk. So understandably, in view of the current financial position and the budget gap set out, I would absolutely agree that that's a fair assessment of that risk. And we're moving towards coming up with a balanced budget for 25-26 and moving towards that medium-term financial gap as well, finding solutions to that. We've convened a budget working group, so the budget strategy paper that was taken to the IJB in September agreed the convening of a budget working group and a number of IJB development sessions in order to move forward with bringing forward proposals to balance that gap. So we're working towards that at the moment and making good progress at the moment. The other one, which moved from high to very high, was around primary care. Now that has actually been reassessed and come back down following a review during the year, which was carried out with the previous head of primary care and officers. I don't know whether Tom Cowan may want to come in and give some comments around that. I know there's an ongoing review of that strategic risk, which may result in it going back up again. But I know Tom's working with others in NHS Forth Valley around that primary care strategic risk as well. And I suppose just finally, we have done a review of the strategic risk register. So with our extended senior management team, we've looked at all of the strategic risks and we've been working with partner risk managers as well. So Hugh Coyle in the council and Vicky in NHS Forth Valley to look at whether we have the right strategic risks recorded, whether they're at the right level and whether we should be adding others that are missing. So we've done a really good review around that and we're progressing with the results of that in due course and hope to bring a refreshed strategic risk register for next financial year. Thanks.
Thank you for that. I'll look forward to it. Thanks, especially if it's going to be an improvement.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Forrest. Any other questions? Councillor Kelly.
Yeah. Afternoon all. You've answered the first question I was going to ask you, but the second question would be, the report notes that the IJB, the Integrated Joint Board, controls an annual budget of approximately 306 million. What proportion of this do Falkirk Council fund? And can I ask, is there a risk that Falkirk Council may be asked to contribute additional funds to the future?
Yeah, so I've just done a calculation there. So of the 306 million, at the moment, 41.6% of that relates to social care services from the council. At the moment, we are committed to bringing our budgets back in line to make sure that we're financially sustainable going forward. And we would not anticipate requesting additional funding. However, that would always be welcome. But some of the decisions that are going to have to be made by the IJB are going to be really difficult decisions. I'm working on a draft budget paper in a moment, which will be remitted to partners following the IJB at the end of November, so which will set out the current budget gap. And we're making change to that, but the budget working group are working through additional pressures and those potential solutions to funding the budget gap. It is extremely difficult. And that budget paper will set out those changes when it comes to partners.
Thanks very much for that. Look forward to that coming forward. We see what our position is.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions. Given the financial challenges being faced by the HSCP, are you confident that difficult decisions can be taken forward by the IJB? How will the senior leadership of the HSCP collaborate with Falkirk Council elected members to ensure that these decisions can be taken?
So I'm maybe come in to respond to that. So as officers, we've got a budget group that we're working hard to develop costed options to allow opportunities for the IJB to take decisions. In addition to that, we've got a number of we've had a workshop and we've got a number of workshops planned with IJB colleagues to have an in-depth conversation around the different options that are coming to light. In addition to that, as Director of Health and Social Care for the Council, I'm as part of the Council's leadership team, and we do liaise, with our Council colleagues to ensure that everything is open, transparent. We're supporting and challenging each other appropriately, and as and when required, we'll come in and continue to engage with the wider elected members as well.
Okay, thank you. My next question is, the benchmarking framework shows that Falkirk is performing below average on a number of indicators in comparison to Scottish averages. Some of this is out of our control, such as an ageing population. However, it is important that actions are taken to improve in areas that we can control. What steps are being taken to improve outcomes in Falkirk?
So I'll maybe invite Martin and Caroline to come in and talk about some of the work that we're progressing to improve some of the indicators. We're below average, particularly in relation to self-directed support, for example. I know Caroline's doing some work on that.
Okay, who's first, Caroline?
Thank you. So what we're doing in terms of self-directed support is we're refreshing the policy around self-directed support and looking at our policy around that and making sure that we're ensuring that adults are offered the range of choices that are available in terms of care and support, and at the centre of the decision-making process. I don't know, Martin, if there's anything you would want to add.
Just that actually we're really mindful of the LGBF results, and actually a lot of them, I guess the difficulty is that a lot of authorities report things in different ways, but we are really keen to drive forward with the models that actually we've updated the council out over probably the past 2 or 3 years around how we can ensure people get quicker access to assessment, how we can ensure that people are satisfied with the quality of care at home services. And we've done a lot of work around remodelling the service to make sure that actually the people of Falkirk actually get really good services from us. So some areas within the LGBF are actually very different. And one of the things that we'd probably highlight is the cost of care at home services. For example, there's no consistent approach taken by councils around how that unit cost is measured. So in terms of that one, we're quite often seen as a significant outlier, but we do attribute cost to the in-house care home service in a very different way to some other areas. So I suppose the assurance we would give, is that collectively as a leadership team, we're looking to improve the services in a way that actually improve outcomes for everybody that accesses services in Falkirk. And some of that work members will be aware of. I suppose going back to the earlier query around how can we ensure that actually council members are involved in the decisions. And one of the things that you will be aware is we are very keen to engage around a whole range of service changes. Recently, I facilitated a lunch and learn session for members about some of the proposed changes that we had around our home care model. And I hope that that gave members an assurance that actually we were looking to improve the quality of that service, not just in-house, but actually in terms of the private provision as well. So I suppose as a leadership team, we would just want to assure you that actually we constantly endeavour to improve services and hope that some of that progress has been evidenced through the performance reports. Hopefully that answers the question, Provost.
Okay, thank you. Tom, did you want to come in with anything?
In terms of progress, sorry, beg your pardon, I get distracted there. In terms of progress in terms of primary care, since the transfer of primary care responsibility in March 2023 over into the partnership, one of the kind of key areas that had been a concern within primary care colleagues, and bearing in mind the vast majority are private individual businesses, was the governance arrangements that might need to be in place in terms of understanding exactly where decisions are made, how our decisions are made, etc. So we've been making substantial progress recently in relation to government's arrangements that will then link directly into the IGB, into the NHS board, and by virtue of both of those, also into kind of other assurance and audit processes. So we've made significant progress in terms of getting a broad agreement in relation to the governance arrangements, and all of that is hoped to be kind of landed quite soon. Also since both my predecessor and myself, we have been doing quite a lot of engaging with the individual practices as well, in terms of trying to understand what the pressures are there and what levels of support we can provide to them. So we do feel, in terms of the last 6 months to a year, that we have made fairly significant progress in relation to primary care.
Okay, thank you. Just another question, probably for Martin, on the MAT standards. I wonder if you could say a wee bit about the MAT standards. So it says MAT 1, all people accessing services have the option to start MAT from the same day of presentation. So is that a methadone programme or some type of prescription to assist somebody coming off drugs? So who is that, through their GP, or how is that done, Martin?
Yeah, the MAT standards are really, the main one is about that rapid access to medicine assisted treatment, and the aim is that people, where necessary, can actually access a prescription on the same day that they turn up for services. Some of the other MAT standards kind of emphasise the focus on choice, so there's an expectation that actually people are really informed around which alternative they can access. So it's not just about methadone, it's actually discussing with the service user around what's right for them and making sure that they can access it that same day. The MAT standards actually really all come together to actually describe a whole system change in terms of the treatment for people with substance use issues. You will note that in that graph it actually shows that there was a change between the first year of the MAT standards implementation, subsequent years, and that's because they added to the standards in recognition that actually it's much more than medicine that actually helps people improve their outcomes. Yep. So it is quite a large scale change for the sector. At the moment, we're looking actually at moving the current process from, I guess, NHS community addiction-based services to primary care services, and that's why that's set out in one of the standards. There's a real mix just now, but actually what we've done in terms of moving ahead with the standards is really focused on our NHS substance use services and our community-based substance use services. The next step of that work will actually be really close engagement with GP practices so that we can look at that whole system change bit. So for me, while some of the standards are shown as provisional green, that kind of indicates we've still got work to do. We're currently working with Clackmannanshire and Stirling Health and Social Care Partnership, who actually host the NHS addiction services, to look at actually refining the model so that over coming years actually we can really embed a community-based focus. You'll be aware we've actually done a number of developments within the ADP in Falkirk around, I guess, mobile access to treatment, around following up with near-fatal overdoses and things to try and proactively engage people in treatment. And all of that work actually combines to deliver the MAT standards. One of the things that the ADP has recently done is commissioned an independent needs assessment to look at actually what do we need in Falkirk to deliver not just the MAT standards but actually improve on those standards. And I'd be happy to bring something back at a later date when that work's completed. But hopefully that answers your question, Provost.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks very much, Martin. Any other questions? Councillor Patrick.
Yes, just really about the complaints report. And while it does show there's been an increase in complaints during Q1 of 2024-25, there has been an improvement in the percentage of complaints dealt with within timescales in this quarter. What actions are being taken to manage complaints more effectively? And has the Chief Officer identified any trends in the type of complaints that we're receiving and what we can do to try and hopefully avoid complaints?
Yes, we receive regular data around the complaints from both the Council and the NHS, which is really helpful in terms of identifying trends. In addition to that, managers are working with colleagues to hopefully listen to any concerns from citizens as early as possible and rectify it before it turns into a formal complaint. And as you say, we have been improving our response times in order to close off complaints as early as possible, while fully understanding what the challenges are and what the issues are, in order to inform our future service improvements as well. So I don't know if Caroline or Martin wants to add in anything else around what we're doing with our frontline managers.
Will I come in first?
Yeah, if you go first, Martin, and I'll add.
As you probably see, complaints have been an ongoing issue for us in terms of response time. So we have recently undertaken a review of our processes. So that's probably why you can see them improving. We have ensured that actually complaints responses are part of the general agenda item when meeting with managers, and we do get regular reports around the number of complaints. Part of the challenge, I guess, that we have though is that trying to balance the demands of the service provision with responding to complaints in time, but we are seeing improvements and we are beginning to focus more and more on that. In terms of the types of complaint, it can be extremely varied as resources get tighter and actually the services struggle to meet the demand. We do find that actually we see an increase in complaints around length of wait for assessment and length of wait for a service. But managers try to engage with service users as much as possible to keep them up to date with progress. But it is an ongoing challenge. But as a management team, we do look at it regularly with all our managers, and that's why you can see slight improvements. We do recognise we've still got a way to go though, but we are on that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much, Convener, if you're happy enough for me to come in here. One, of course, since primary care transferred itself to ourselves, as you might imagine, one of the most common concerns is about access to GPs. And that, of course, reflects quite a lot of kind of public commentary as well as formal complaints in terms of individual experiences, etc. And whilst I would be the last to say that there has been a perhaps measurable improvement in the sense of a significant progress, we're beginning to really see some of the benefits of the primary care improvement plan and the primary care improvement plan funding in terms of alternative appropriate provision for individuals as opposed to always seeing your GP, so an appropriate professional. So we are beginning to see some progress there. I think one of the most challenging areas around about that is, of course, the public's perception themselves about who they want to see and when they want to see someone, and we're trying to kind of redouble our efforts at the moment to try and help the public to understand how they are able to see an appropriate professional, perhaps the right professional for them rather than default to the GP. It is slow progress, but I think nevertheless, I think the primary care improvement programme is beginning to have some impact.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Patrick.
Also in the complaints report, it details that 20 people took the time to provide positive feedback, which is wonderful. I'm really just wondering, are we feeding that back to staff? Because we get told enough about complaints, but I think it's important that staff are actually encouraged by the time people have taken. And when you read some of these comments, they're very positive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just to confirm, we absolutely do feed those back to staff. So some of these come in through the new care opinion tool that I mentioned earlier, and we do take the time to formally recognise the hard work. So I think it's when people take the time and effort to write in to say they've had a really good experience, I think that signals significantly the hard work of the teams and the impact they make on people's lives. So we absolutely celebrate all compliments that we get.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Patrick. Any other questions? That's the last item on the agenda, so I'd just like to thank everyone for their attendance today and for answering the questions that are put to them as well. So thanks very much, and we'll now close the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.